Look, we need to talk about what's brewing in Toronto right now, because the Blue Jays front office is staring down a decision that's going to break some hearts. And I'm not talking about the obvious stuff with Kyle Tucker and Bichette that everyone's obsessing over. There's something else happening here that's flying under the radar, and Atkins knows he's got a problem on his hands. So Ken Rosenthal dropped some intel a few weeks back that didn't get nearly enough attention. He said one of the ways the Jays could add bullpen help is by moving one of their surplus outfielders. And get this, he specifically named Nathan Lukes, Miles Straw, and Joey Loperfido as guys they're actively considering trading. Now, at the time, people kind of glossed over it, but as we get closer to decisions on Tucker and Bo, this is becoming impossible to ignore. Think about the math here for a second. If Toronto signs Kyle Tucker, where does Nathan Lukes go? This is a guy who just had the best season of his career, who was absolutely clutch in their playoff run. He's been grinding in the minors for years, finally got his shot, and delivered when it mattered most. And now they might have to ship him out? That's brutal. But here's where it gets even more complicated. Even if they don't land Tucker, they still have a massive logjam. You've got Dalton Varsho, George Springer, Anthony Santander coming back from injury, Kevin Kiermaier if they bring him back, Nathan Lukes, Davis Schneider, Joey Loperfido, and Miles Straw. That's 8 guys for 3 outfield spots. Something has to give. And I want to focus on Davis Schneider for a minute because nobody's really talking about him in these trade rumors, but they should be. Remember when this kid came up in 2023 and just went full Babe Ruth mode? Then he struggled in 2024 and people wrote him off. But look at how he finished the year. He posted an 800 OPS in 227 plate appearances. He had the best walk rate in baseball among qualified hitters. This guy has legitimate value, and he's on a team-friendly contract with years of control left. The recent reporting is getting more specific too. There's this concept every front office lives by: trade from a position of strength. And for Toronto right now, that position is the outfield. Varsho and Springer are obviously untouchable, but Lukes, Schneider, Straw, and Loperfido, they all have team control. They're all fighting for playing time, and at least 2 of them need to be moved. Let's game this out. Say the Jays don't get Tucker and they start Nathan Lukes in left field opening day. You still have Schneider, who learned to play the outfield last year specifically because there wasn't room for him in the infield. You have Loperfido, who's not exactly a prospect anymore and needs regular at-bats to develop. And you have Straw, whose role as a defensive specialist and pinch runner is pretty locked in, even though I don't think they'd trade him. According to Fangraph's projections with the current roster, Lukes and Schneider are basically splitting left field duties. Center goes to Varsho and Straw, right field is Santander and Springer with some Kiermaier mixed in. Now add Bichette back into the equation. Where exactly is Davis Schneider supposed to play? They project him for some second base time, but if Bo's there, that evaporates. So you're looking at a 4th outfielder role at best, maybe some spot starts. Is that really the best use of an asset? And what about Loperfido? Is he going to be happy shuttling between AAA and the majors, or are you better off trading one of these guys now while their value is decent and you can actually get something useful back? Here's what makes this so heartbreaking for fans. We're emotionally invested in these guys. Schneider's comeback story this year was inspiring. Nathan Lukes coming through in the playoffs gave us some of the best moments of the season. These aren't just roster pieces, they're guys we've watched grind and fight for their opportunities. Trading them feels wrong, even when you understand it's probably necessary. The Jays desperately need bullpen help. They signed Tyler Rogers, and he's solid, but that can't be their only significant reliever addition. If you can flip Schneider or Lukes or Loperfido for a quality arm, even a mid-leverage guy, you have to seriously consider it. This might actually be why they haven't made another bullpen move yet. They're waiting to see how the Tucker and Bo situations play out before they pull the trigger on an outfield trade. I saw someone on social media ask fans how mad they'd be if Schneider, Lukes, or Loperfido got dealt for a legit bullpen arm. The responses were telling. People said they'd be heartbroken, they'd be sad, but they wouldn't be rationally mad because they get it. They understand it's for the good of the team. That's the reality we're living in. Now let's say the Jays do sign Tucker. Luke's almost certainly gets moved. There's just no way around it. You can't have that much talent sitting on the bench when you need pitching. Even if Tucker doesn't happen, this trade is probably inevitable. Maybe it happens now, maybe it's at the deadline as part of a bigger package, but it's coming. The asset management here is crucial. Loperfido just had the best year of his career. Selling now might actually be selling high, not low. Same with Schneider after his strong finish. You can't let these guys lose value by riding the pine when other teams would give them everyday at-bats, and you'd get something useful in return. And speaking of other AL East moves, Baltimore just re-signed Zack Eflin. Now, Eflin was legitimately one of the worst qualified pitchers last year with a negative WR, but the Orioles brought him back anyway. You know what that tells me? They might be out on the big starting pitcher names still available. There was talk they were chasing Framber Valdez or Ranger Suarez. If they just gave money to Eflin, maybe they're not going as hard after those guys anymore. That's actually good news for Toronto in a weird way. Yusei Kikuchi said yesterday he hasn't even received an offer from any MLB team yet, and his posting deadline is January 5th.